This is for my sisters, trapped in religion. Wake up and free the babies. Sa.neter speak the truth, he's on a mission. Yeah. The house of consciousness, the final call. Will your Bible thumpers wake up or just fall? The house of consciousness, the final call. Stop believing in fairy tales, especially Paul. I used to use the Bible like a lantern in the night, trying to wake up my sisters to the light. Yeah. The house is closing in and it's a total mess. You ignore my wisdom, the ultimate test. Step inside the showcase, the toughest terrain where the truth hits hard. The cut spring pain, I try to wake you with the word in my hand, to get you to the truth, to help you understand. I gave you the scriptures, chapters and verse. I gave you the keys to break the curse. I gave you Torah to unlock with keys. Break the mental chains and deep. The house of consciousness, the final call. Will your Bible thumpers wake up or just fall? The house of consciousness, the final call. Stop believing in fairy tales, especially Paul. Wake the sisters up with the fire in their soul, taking back their story, gaining full control. Get your mind right, leave the Bible behind. The Bible is not your history, your soul will be hard to find. Welcome to the HOK, where the truth resides. No more hiding in the pews where the die. We speak against the Bible just to wake the inner side. Come inside the HOK doors, we bring the light. The house of consciousness. Will your Bible thumpers wake up or just fall? Stop believing in fairy tales, especially Paul. Sa.neter, don't stop, wake the sisters up. Don't stop, wake the sister up. I won't stop, I won't stop, I won't stop. Sa.neter, don't stop, wake the sisters up. Don't stop, wake the sister up. I won't stop, I won't stop, I won't stop.
Chick would look just like Queen Ty. You know Akhenaten's mother? Look just like the fucking I mean, this woman, her features look exactly like that statue, right? If that statue came to life, it would be this woman, right? And she said, you American? I said, well, how the hell am I American? She said, you were born here, right? I said, your kids were born here? She said, yeah. I said, they American? She said, no. I said, why not? She said, because I'm from Ghana. I said, so how the hell am I American? If your kids were born here and they not American, I was born here, how am I American? I'm not American because I was born here. She said, oh, you black? I said, yeah. She said, what about the light-skinned ones?
Oh, man.
She didn't skip a beat. Mm-hmm. Straight face, no insult intended.
Right.
Right? If I'm black, what about the light-skinned ones? So they don't see light-skinned black people as black. Mm-hmm. I told you one of them was light, right? And I told him, I said, you the lightest guy from Ghana I ever seen. He said, oh, I'm half caste. I thought he meant one of his parents was white. I said, you half caste? He said, yeah, my mother's from Ghana, but my father's from Ethiopia. Not a white man, an Ethiopian. Mm-hmm. But this guy from Ghana don't consider them black like them. You understand? Mm-hmm. He considered himself half caste because he half Ghanaian and half Ethiopian. What I'm saying to you is that the way we see the world, sa.neter, over here, out of this American bubble, we got white man binoculars on. So a lot of the shit we see, we looking through a fucked up lens, okay? And it's colored by ignorance because people don't see themselves the way we've been taught to see them.
I wonder why, yeah, life had to be so hard, Lord. Now life, better do that car, sa.neter TV, yeah, just what our people need, Lord. The house of consciousness, come get it off your chest, spreading information through the city streets, the word been traveling street to street, sa.neter TV, deal with facts that be concrete. Ooh, check out the realness, see how raw it be, see whether it's debating over DVD, sit back, relax, and let your mind be free, so if you got that info, ain't to take the heat, ooh, just come correct, this here ain't for the weak, yeah.
Discernible Black Power movement currently. I don't know who I would be saying Black Power to, right? There's a remarkable, deafening silence of individuals who used to proclaim themselves Black Power revolutionaries and throw up the fists and, you know, talk rhetoric, wear uniforms and stuff. And haven't seen them lately. Don't know where they're at. Maybe they're on vacation, right? Or maybe they got deported by ICE. But realism-ism, simply put, is the truth with no bullshit in it. It gets no simpler than that. It's just the truth with no bullshit in it. That means no spin, no personal bias, no opinion. It's the truth. And in a time like the times that we're living in, interesting times, the truth with no bullshit in it is hard to find. Everybody puts their bullshit into whatever they're dealing with. They've bought into the systemic limitations placed on people's perspectives. And what I mean by systemic limitations is they have you thinking left or right. They have you thinking their way or my way. It's either Christian or Muslim, or they deal in opposites. And when you limit your perspective to the perspective of opposites, you lose out because you miss everything else that's going on. As in people who have absolutely nothing to do with whatever the hell you're dealing with. They're there too, right? But your limited perspective doesn't account for them. That's why when you encounter people of different cultures, like, I don't know, Donald Trump's finding out now about the Persians, and they're different, you know, and the way that they view the world is different, you know. So when you're dealing with different perspectives that you haven't encountered, and your worldview doesn't allow you to unlock the limitations placed on you, you get stuck. You know?
Okay, so let me ask you this before we go deep into the questions I have for you. You'll find that a lot of our people are now becoming converts to Islam. First they're Christians, and now they believe that they found the freedom of religion under Islam. What do you say to that right there? Do you think that also holds us back and stop us from being who we really are?
Well, you know, it's you know, it's interesting. We have among us people of various backgrounds, right? And when I say among us, I mean our people too. Because remember, we don't originate from one people. Okay?
Now, what you mean by that? We don't originate from one people. What are you saying?
In what has become the United States of America, the people, you know, I like to use the term free and accepted black people, right? Because that more than anything else describes us in America, right? Because we have black people here from all over the place, right? And we accept them as black people, okay? The free black people here. Now, some people are gonna say, oh, you got that from the Masons. No, actually, they got that from reality. You understand? From understanding that you have people here and people who come here and they're accepted. Now, white people do it and nobody questions it.
Now, remember, I asked you about the Islam.
I know. I'm gonna show you, right? White people do it and there's no question, right? They're free and accepted. Now, when I say the various backgrounds, it's because, going back to your question, why some of us kind of gravitate towards Islam, right? Mm-hmm. Perhaps their ancestors were influenced by Islam on the continent, and they're gravitating towards that ancestral history, right? But at the same time, you have those of us here whose ancestors were the victims of Islam on the continent of Africa because they were selling people too. You understand? Mm-hmm. And they were killing black people and enslaving black people on the continent of Africa. They still doing it on the continent of Africa. I'm talking about various Muslim sects, right? And some people, when you say that, they think Arabs, right? But you can't really think Arabs, okay? Because Arabs, Islam came from them, but they ain't the ones that were spreading it around the continent of Africa. Those were like offshoots, various groups of people, right? Who adopted it and came into contact with it and then imposing on other people, right? And in less organized societies, the organizational structure of it became appealing to them, and they adopted it, right? And then they try to impose it on other people, you know? So you have various forms of Islam on the continent of Africa imposing their so-called ideologies on others. It's still going on right now. That's why you have those wars happening on the continent of Africa now with those so-called Islamic militant groups. Well, think about those Islamic militant groups 200, 300, 1,000 years ago. They were doing the same thing, you know? Same thing that you see in the Sudan right now with the mixed people killing the black people and chasing them out their village, taking their land, taking their village. They think it's taking their resources, but they're actually taking the people's land, you know? And it's been going on for 1,000 years.
Okay. Let me ask you, remember the topic is you said. So we're gonna go, I went over some of your videos and
What did I say?
I'm going to hit you with it right now. You said the conditions were orchestrated. Who orchestrated them? Through what institutions? And what evidence can you cite?
Which conditions?
The conditions of our people.
Listen, now, understand, one of the confusing factors of, I don't know, all of us when we speak, right? You got to bear in mind.
The conditions,
Yeah, listen.
No, the conditions when you was locked down and locked up. Those conditions as well about people.
You have to bear in mind, right, that conditionally speaking depends on where you're at and who you're dealing with.
Yeah, that's what I said when you was locked
because, well, again,
the conditions.
all of us weren't dealing with the same thing at the same time or under the same circumstances, right? As far as conditions being locked up in the community, listen, gonna have a lot of people upset over the comment that I'm about to make, right? But the only thing that I would ask them to do is to think about it, right? There is very little difference between being locked up in prison and being in the projects. And people be like, what the fuck? How you gonna say that? You locked up in prison, your ass is locked up in there. No, you're not. You locked in at night. The daytime, your ass run around. In the yards, you're in school, you're in programs, you run the hallway, you doing whatever, right? Then at a certain time, your ass is locked in and asleep. What you doing in the street, right? You go in the house at night, you locked in there. You come out in the daytime, you doing what you're doing, you back in, you locked in there, right? You lock yourself in to protect yourself from the predators that roam around at night, right? Theoretically. This is how we've been systematized, right? You don't lock your doors, somebody's gonna come in there, rob you, kill you, rape you, steal your stuff or whatever, right? Same shit in there, okay? There's no difference. The fact that you see people going in and out of that shit, right? And you see people in there and you say, where the bars at? don't see no bars. They got rugs on the floor, towels on the walls. God, shit look like a hotel room. You understand? TV, bed, you relaxing. You understand? And some people get acculturated to that. So that it's not really, look, prison like you imagine prison, okay? When they sentenced me, I thought they was gonna put my ass in a fucking cell with bars, and that's it. Lock the door and bring me food, right? That's what went through my mind. But that ain't what's going on in there. You know, they make you get up and go to breakfast and stand around and shit. You understand? They make you go to programs. If you don't, then they discipline you, they punish you, you know, because technically your ass is a slave in there. So you have no rights. You know, you're civilly dead. And that's kind of the condition that they're actually trying to orchestrate for the people out here, not just our people. You understand? They try to suppress people's voting rights. They're trying to make people civilly dead. So
you admitted you were being mean inside those conditions.
Growth, man. It takes time. First of all, remember, you don't know, or let's use an analogy, right? A bird doesn't know that he's in a cage. A bird just knows he can't fly away. You call it a cage. You feeding the bird in there singing, tweet, tweet, tweet. I know why the cage bird sings. You know, you ever heard that phrase? Mm-hmm. Well, I know why the cage bird sings. The cage bird sings because he want to get out of that shit, right? Cage bird singing about freedom. Well, at some point, you become the cage bird and you realize the circumstances in which you find yourself. And if you wake up, you try to change those circumstances. Some people don't wake up, sa.neter. Some people become comfortable in their sleep. And when you try to disturb that sleep, they become violent. You ever try to wake somebody up that's dozing? Bother me, man. You see I'm sleeping? Well, it's the same way with information. You can try to tell somebody something and they not trying to have none of that, you know? And sometimes they become violent because what you're trying to tell them, it contradicts what they understand. Understanding can be completely incorrect. Absolutely. But you can completely understand that incorrectness. You have a lot of people that do crazy shit and it makes sense to them. And you look and you say, what's wrong with you? I'm having fun. Having fun? That's dangerous. No, this is fun. You know, it's different, right? People are different. But once you become aware, the first thing you become aware of is the difference of the people that's around you. You become aware that some people can think and some people can't. And the ones who can't become dangerous, because the most dangerous person to be around is a person that can't think. They're subject to impulse. They're subject to the control of other people, the manipulations of other people, and there's always other people willing to manipulate you, no matter where you are, the circumstances or the conditions, right? Because human nature creates, that's enough, thanks. Human nature creates that type of hierarchical relationship between people, just like ants. You know, the ants do the same shit to other ants that people do to other people. Okay? But the wake up, I'll tell you this about that. Because it actually crossed my mind the other day, right? And this will go back to your question about Islam as well. I don't know if I ever told you, but the first person to give me a Quran to read was a white man, right? I'm not going to tell you that that's what made me suspicious of Islam. That's not how it happened, right? How it happened was I was 19. 19. Now imagine me at 19. 19-year-old me would eat a pork chop, right? 19-year-old me didn't give a shit about anything or anyone, right? Except family, of course, right? But 19-year-old me found myself locked in that cage, right? And I was having a debate with a 5% brother named Dakim, right? Mm-hmm. And we would be arguing because Dakim was trying to tell me that he was God, right? 19-year-old me was trying to tell Dakim that he should be able to get us out of that shit, right? Listen, you God, why are we still here? You understand? Mm-hmm. We should be at least running through the woods, something, right? Just get us outside the gates, right? And we could take it from there. If you God, right? You telling me this nonsense. So we arguing. He's trying to persuade me. Remember, 19-year-old me, Christian family, right? Not a Christian. Not religious at all, right? But if you pressed me, I would have probably leaned towards Christian people, right? But I wasn't, I didn't believe in, when I was 14, my grandmother asked me if I believe in God. I told her no. She said, "You're a fool, get out my room, you're going to hell." Right? So that was me, right? So at 19, I'm locked up and I find myself, I got a 5% on one side of me, right? I got an Army vet on the other side of me, and I'm arguing with Dakim. Now, when I get back into the cage, I got Adu, that's the 5% brother, right? And Sarge, that's the Army vet brother, right? And I'm telling them about this argument I'm having with Dakim, right? Adu is telling me Dakim is right. Yeah, the black man is God, right? Sarge is telling me, he understand where they coming from, but that's some bullshit because they ass locked up in here with us, right? If they was God, their ass would be here, right? They saying the white man is the devil, but how the hell the devil got God locked up, right? So me and Sarge is laughing, right? So now the next day, we in class, me and Dakim in the science class, right? Because they make you go to programs. So I pick school over work, right? So I'm in the school and I'm arguing. So we go to the science teacher, Walter Breed, right? And I said, "Mr. Breed, what you think about this?" And we arguing, right? So at the end of the class, he called me over. He said, "Look, read this," and gave me the Quran, right? So I'm like, what the fuck? So I take it back to the cage and I tell Adu and Sarge. So Adu and Sarge tell me, yo, he's a Mason. He's trying to teach you, right? So I'm like, get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. I don't believe in none of that bullshit, right? I said, that shit fake. Sarge said, look, I'm telling you, that's some real shit. They trying to run the world, this is bad, right? So I said, man, look, that's all some bullshit, right? He said, listen, if you're a real Mason, this is what you got to do. He said, you got to do this, and then you got to turn to your left, and when you turn back, say he gonna shake your hand. So you shake his hand like this, right? I said, man, get the fuck out of here, right? The next day in the school, though, I'm 19 years old. I don't believe none of that shit, but I'm 19 years old. You know I'm gonna try, you know what I'm saying? To see if this shit is real, I got, you know, it's hot. I go see if it's hot, you know what I'm saying? I'm standing at the desk, me and Doc Kim, and we arguing back and forth. Breed is sitting down. So I say, by the way, Mr. Breed, and I asked him a question. And I turned to my left. When I turned around, that white man's hand was up to shake my hand. And it fucked me up so much that I forgot to shake his hand like Sarge told me to shake his hand. You know what I'm saying? So when I told him about it, he said, man, you fucked up. Now he gonna know you trying to see if, you know what I'm saying? I said, so what that mean? He said, well, ask him this question, right? He gave me some old Sir Kushhour shit, right? So I took the word, Mr. Breed started talking about the ancient dialect of this and that. I said, how you know that? He looked up at me like, I'm not supposed to ask him how I know. From then, sa.neter, 19, I started studying because I realized it was shit that I didn't know. You understand? All around me, people know shit, and I don't know.
So you start studying what, be a Mason?
No.
Or didn't know about Masons?
I started studying everything.
Oh, okay.
Because everything. sa.neter, people used to play basketball. I used to go sit in the library and read everything. You understand? When me and Doc Kim used to argue, we used to go to the library and argue. We arguing about history and we sitting there with all the books. So we and arguing points, right? So while people play basketball, we've Doc Kim ass out there somewhere. I see him from time to time, right? But when people would be playing basketball or spades, I would be sitting in the library having debates with 5%ers. They trying to prove to me that they God. And I'm telling them, ain't no way. This is why, right? I used to argue with the chaplains, with the priests and the Protestant chaplains and shit, right? I was arguing with a Catholic priest once, right? And we got into a heated debate, right? Over the origins of Christianity. So he brought me a book. And I'm looking at the book, and the book had Latin and Greek in it, right? So I told him, I said, listen, I can't read this. And he said, why not? I said, because that's Latin, I think that's Greek. I said, I can't read that. You know what this white man told me? He said, oh, you need some knowledge. And he proceeded to tutor me in Latin and Greek. You understand? Point being, you can know things, right? But there's stuff, remember, English is limited. English is young, right? And especially American English, right? This was not the intellectual capital of the white world, you know? Mm-hmm. These people were the trash that they threw out of their civilization. They ain't want this, get your ass out of here, go to the colonies. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So the best part of them stayed there, in the castles and shit. These was the trash, right? So we kind of got exposed to their trash, right? So a lot of us have leftover trash ideas, and they circulating, permeating the atmosphere. You know, they recycled. There's a lot of movements that those people have gone through, and for some reason they filtered into our communities, and our people are going through it. That those what do they call them? Sovereign citizens and Hebrew Israelites and all that stuff came from them people. Those was their stuff. They filtered into our movements because for some strange reason, some of us won't be like them.
So you don't think our ancestors, some of our ancestors, were Hebrew Israelites?
See, here's the thing, right? I know my ancestors weren't Hebrew Israelites, right? I can't tell you your ancestors weren't, but I can tell you there's a high probability that they weren't, right? I can tell you that there's more of a probability that you have a conquistador ancestor than a Hebrew Israelite ancestor, because you have some ancestry that goes to called the Hispaniola, you know? So some people from that part of the world have that Spaniard injection. You understand? I don't think people really grasp the significance of time and human interaction over time, right? Because if they did, they wouldn't think things like, one people here.
Let me get back to some of the things you said. And when I read this, you got to try your best to remember when you said these things.
When?
You said collective action. I'm going to try to do it slow so when I read it to you, you'll know what I'm talking about. You said collective action becomes threatening when it affects someone's profit margin.
Oh, hell yeah.
Do you reduce every political conflict to economics?
Where are we?
In America?
No.
In the market?
Yeah, but I'm not in America. Okay? I'm in Harlem, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I mean when we talk about black people, right? It's the same thing, okay? You know there's black people in California, right? You know that that's, no. You know that's 3,000 miles away, mm-hmm. right? Okay, so the market conditions that affect those black people are a little different than the market conditions that affect us here, right? But the market conditions are what's determining the overall conditions here. It's especially in these times that they've given corporations the same rights of freedom of speech as people. You don't think the market is controlling this venture, right? Mm-hmm. This is look, the cash crop, right? That in everyone's mind was the slave crop. Was what? Cotton. Okay? You hear cotton was king. All right? In Alabama, you still got fields of cotton, right? What's money made out of?
Cotton.
75% cotton. So if the slave economy, the cash crop of the slave economy that generated wealth for this country is what their money is made of, right? And the people who they abused in their system that they call slavery, right? Even now, they still abuse the people, right? There's a connected reality that permeates the society that is like the elephant in the room. Nobody want to talk about it. Time to time, people bring up reparations, but the market plays tricks. And one of the tricks that the market played was confusion. Remember I tell you confusion's been weaponized? Mm-hmm. Okay, you got black people here from everywhere. Everywhere. Who's the descendants of the enslaved black people? At the same time you had enslaved black people here, you have free black people here. You do know that, right? Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of people don't know that because a lot of people, they just have that narrative of black people were enslaved in America. So they think all the black people were enslaved in America, right? They don't understand that America wasn't always the America that it is now. Those 13 colonies expanded over time. They expanded in 1840, they expanded in 1848, they expanded, you understand? And as they expanded, they incorporated more people, and with those incorporations came more black people that wasn't in the original colonies. You understand? Even in 1664, when the English took the Dutch colony, where we're sitting now, there were free black people in the Dutch colony. It wasn't just enslaved black people. Those free black people that were in the Dutch colony remained free when the English took it over. So when the United States became the United States, there was already free black people here. They didn't become the United States until the 1790s. 1664, the English took New Amsterdam and hence New Netherland from the Dutch. That's 1664. 1790s is when you had your so-called, War of Independence. They call that shit, right? When you had the business people decide that they was gonna make a move and take over the business for themselves, which is really what it was, right? It wasn't no damn war of independence. It was financial beef. Remember, it's market. Their original intention was to come here, make a profit, go back, live like kings. None of that ever changed. And hence, the circumstances of profit, when they look at us, sa.neter, mm-hmm. They look at us like you look at a balance sheet. You understand? For them, we in the loss column for them. Because we used to be the profit. Expensive, valuable commodities, right? Some people get mad, right? When I say they sold the best workers and agricultural workers and shit from those kingdoms in Africa. That's how this place got the agricultural thing popping.
Let me ask you this. And if you don't know, just simply say you don't know. Were the Moors who conquered Spain black/Negroid?
It's not a question of whether you know or you don't know, right? It's what you have to understand is that you're dealing with Islamicized people, right? And you don't have to be coy And you don't have to be diplomatic because people's feelings get in the way. All you have to do is ask the question. In East Africa, what was the relationship that Islam had with black people? In North Africa, what was the relationship that the people had with Islam? Why would you think it would be any different in Northwest Africa when you see today the remnants of that relationship would be Mauritania? What's the relationship that the black people have with the mixed and non-black people there that's Moors? What's the relationship that they have? The white and the mixed ones is rulers over the other ones, the black ones, right? I just had a heated debate with a guy from Mauritania in a store today because he's trying to tell me that his mother is white and his father's black. And I'm looking at his black ass and I'm saying, ain't no way. There's no way in hell your mother's white like these white people. Your mother might be white like Mauritanian white, which is what we would call Puerto Rican. You understand? That's kind of what they look like, right? And that's no offense to Puerto Ricans, but you know they mixed, right? Mm-hmm. So the white people in Mauritania look mixed like that, you know? So to them, those white people. To us, we wouldn't call them white people, you know? But that relationship, right? Remember I showed you that video of them dragging that guy out that mosque for saying whites and blacks are equal?
Right. Right.
That's Mauritania. So if it's like that now, right? What do you think it was like 1,000 years ago? Do you think the blacks was ruling those other ones, or the other ones was ruling the blacks? When you see the armies, what they look like. There's a perspective that comes to mind when you see a successful army or successful military doing something, other people copy it, right? How many people you see with armies with red hats on over there? The British copied it, the Turks copied it, right? Armies of blacks with red hats. I can show you pictures from different people with the same model, but they get that model from someplace.
So the Moors that conquered Spain, were they black or Negroid?
Mixed. See, it's kind of hard for me to get you to understand. You trying to project what we know today onto people then, right? And I kind of really need you to understand, like I tell you, there's no such thing as an African, right? To us today, when we say African, we mean them black people from the continent of Africa, okay? Now, people on the continent of Africa, right? When they come off the continent of Africa and they refer to Africans, they don't necessarily mean the black people on the continent of Africa. They mean everybody, you know? So they could be talking about their white friends, their Berber friends, and stuff like that, right? So different people see things in different ways. It's because of different reasons, right? But mainly who you came into contact with and how you came into contact with them. So in France, they say Afrique. In English, it's Africa. You understand? And in Spanish, it's Africano. Hey, sa.neter. In Dutch, it's nigger. In Spanish, it's negro. In English, it's black. You understand? So Remember, this was a Dutch colony. The Dutch in 1619 traded 23 niggas to the English in Jamestown, Virginia. That began American slavery. They got those black people from the Dutch here in this colony. New Netherland, the capital of which was New Amsterdam. Okay, it was in the middle of English colonies and they were prosperous. That's why the English took it over. That's the economic system today. They got it from them Dutch, Wall Street. You understand? It was a hostile takeover. Last governor was Peter Stuyvesant, 1664. My point being, right, that remember, the market had a tremendous influence here in this place, right? Even as it expanded, remember, the interest of the market was what was controlling the politics, the fights, slave states, free states. That was that market talking, right? Market terminology. If you have a product, right, you brand that product. That product has a name, so when you go in the market and you're looking for the product, you ask for the product by name, right? The product in this market, in this particular market, is niggas. You understand?
How can you say that?
Because that's a fact. I can say that because it's a fact. I can say that because it's a fact. I can also say that after this market was shut down, was no more niggas. Now, in the English market, there was Negroes because they was getting them from the Spanish market. That's why the English used the Spanish word for blacks. Fresh crop of Negroes, newly arrived from the west coast of Africa or from wherever, right? Even from Jamaica, they had Negroes arriving from Jamaica, right? Seasoned. Put that on the ads. You can pull them up. The ads, they all over the internet. You can pull it up. Look up slave ads and auction flyers and shit. And you see the language that they're using and you know where those people were coming from. The major markets was Cuba. You understand? The Spanish had a major, major impact on the importation of English people couldn't even legally sell black people over here without a charter from the Spanish called the Encomiendo. That's why they was using Spanish. That's why they was smuggling black people. The illegal slave trade. You had a legal slave trade and you had an illegal slave trade.
Legal slave trade. What's the legal slave? What the hell?
Listen.
A legal slave trade?
Listen, you had a legal slave trade, you had an illegal slave trade. Remember, it was legal because it was sanctioned by the Pope. Gave Portugal this part, gave Spain that part, right? So it was sanctioned. Now you have individuals who can recite the specific bulls and edicts and give you all of that, right? That's not how my memory works. How my memory works is I understand the circumstances, right? And then I'm dealing with the next circumstance. This particular circumstance that we're dealing with, right, gave rise to the fact that you don't see no Portuguese over here. That's in Brazil. And that's because the way the map broke down, the half that the Portuguese got covered that. The half that the Spanish got covered this. The Spanish part gave them part of what's now the United States, the Caribbean. That's why you see all these black people.
Do you forgive the Pope? He made an apology.
Forgive the Pope?
He made an apology.
Forgive the Pope for what?
He made an apology for slavery, for sanctioning slavery. He made a public apology.
Listen. The Pope can't apologize for what that dead fucker did in the 1500s. That shit don't mean, look, you know that in Ghana, right? They constantly apologizing for their role in the slave trade, right? Why you think Ghana constantly apologizing for their role in the slave trade? No other African state has apologized more than Ghana. When you look at Dahomey, Dahomey was probably the most egregious violator of human rights in that era, because not only were they teamed up with a Portuguese bastard and selling people, but they was voodoo sacrificing people. You understand? And I don't give a shit what you believe, right? If you voodoo sacrificing somebody, your ass is violating their human rights.
But hold on, you said Ghana apologizing. Are you saying Ghana was capturing other quote-unquote African people, putting them in slavery? I thought they was capturing the Ghana people.
What?
Like different tribes. You know, different tribes that they call tribes.
Listen.
They were enemies of each other. And so when they catch you, they would sell you, because they don't consider themselves the same people in Africa.
Yeah, I taught you that.
Yes,
but
you did.
but that's not what I'm saying to you here.
All right, what you saying?
What I'm saying to you here is there's a reason Ghana apologizes more than a lot of other people.
Why so?
Right? Ghana had slaves.
Okay.
But remember that slaves is an English word. So they didn't call them that. They called them unfree people. No, they called them unfree people.
Okay.
Now,
but Ghana wasn't enslaving their own people.
Now, here's the thing, right? Yeah, they were, right? But there's ways that you could find yourself in that position. You know, it could be debt. You know what I'm saying? Could be a crime. One of the things I would have you understand about Ghana today, right, is Ghana today has a robust prison industrial complex. There's a lot of people locked up in Ghana, in the prisons, okay, right now today. And, you know, you have people that say, Brother Larry never been to Ghana. How you gonna say that shit?
Jabari will tell you that.
No. Google Ghana prison today, right? Go on YouTube, put Ghana prison today, right? Look it up, see what they saying about themselves, right? See how they training they prison guards, marching in troops and shit, right? How it's a good investment and a good job career and shit like that, right? How they got people locked up there 10 years, ain't seen the judge, and they working. That's slavery, okay? So, and I've spoken to people from Ghana, and they tell me shit like, well, you shouldn't do shit bad. You know what I'm saying? So, it's a whole different level of institutionalization that takes place, right? And it's here as well, because we have people who are institutionalized, sa.neter, that aren't necessarily incarcerated. You know, institutionalization doesn't necessarily connote incarceration. You can be institutionalized and be walking around this motherfucker free. You know? I mean, just think. You have have you never encountered dark-skinned white people?
Yes.
Okay, so
I even seen, Brother Larry, white people that look like black people. And what I mean by that is, I would look at them and I would imagine them with a black face, and I would be like, damn, she looked just like so-and-so. Because I'm looking at her with the black face.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
well,
they just have a light-skinned face. Have you ever seen that?
sa.neter, you are in... Here's an uncomfortable truth, right? It's not uncomfortable for me because I tell it all the time, right? But it's an uncomfortable truth in America, right? Because a lot of people think that America, black slaves, right? Mm-hmm. They don't think America, white slaves, all right? But there were white slaves in America on those plantations with black slaves. And people immediately jump to indentured servants, right? Or the Irish. And I tell them, well, no. There were white American slaves in America, right? And they say, well, how you mean? Well, the same way they were black American slaves in America, right? I mean, that's what they call the people, right? So I'm using terminology so people can readily understand me. Because if I use the terms that I use when I think, people will get confused because I don't call people slaves, right? Because they weren't slaves.
So how come you don't see these mass groups of white people coming out fighting for reparations like you see us?
Well, because if, you know, the mindfucker's real, sa.neter. Mm-hmm. If you don't know something, you don't know it, right? Black people don't really know. What they know is that there's a legacy amongst us that is attributed to something that may not be true, okay? There's a legacy amongst us that there's distrust between house niggas and field niggas, right? Presumably, the house niggas were cozying up to massa, right? But what they don't really like to tell you about that is those house niggas was master's kids. You understand? Remember, they're raping the women and they're making babies. They're making half white babies. And then they're raping them. And they're making 3/4, white babies. They're raping them. They're making white people. But they enslaving all of them. Ain't none of them free. They enslaving their own children. You understand? So when they grow up, what the fuck are they? White slaves in America. That's real. That really happened. If you really look at the pictures that you see of those plantations, if you take the time out to look closely, you will see white people in those pictures on those plantations in those raggedy ass slave clothes. You'll see them if you take the time to look. But most people, they just glance and they just assume that those are all black people in those rags on those plantations. It's not the case.
Okay, let me get through these questions so I won't keep it too long.
Oh.
I gotta get through these questions, man. You said you would not excuse a man's abuse because of the last 400 years. How do you avoid turning structural analysis into victims blaming? Into victim blaming?
That sounds like something I told a young guy I was talking to on 125th Street on one of Baba videos. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about the woman calling the cops on a guy, right? And I think I was saying that a woman's nature is to nurture. And if a woman's calling the cops, what the hell is going on in that house that would make her turn in desperation, and you looking at her like, well, she called the cops, she calling the enemy, and I'm saying, well, maybe the guy is the goddamn enemy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, beating her ass and shit, right? Mm-hmm. She can't fight back. What's she gonna do, right? She's been structurally enculturated to have an option, the 911 option. You know what I'm saying? You know that she's been enculturated to have that option, but you whipping her ass. You call the cops on yourself, in my opinion, right? But you can't look at what happened to you, and we know that sometimes the abuser becomes the abuser. We understand that. We understand that cycle, psychologically, physically, in reality. I can show it to you time and time again. Abused children sometimes turn into abusers. You know, you beat a kid goes out, he learns that violence is the way. If you smack the kid, violence is the way. He smack his friend. Yo, don't do that. Smack. Yo, why you hit me? I'm telling you, don't do that shit. You do it again, I'm gonna hit you again. That's what he getting at home. You know what I'm saying? So you learn, you actually teaching this shit. And the kid goes out and he reinforces the lessons that he learns at home. But likewise, you abused on the plantation. After, a certain amount of time, that shit becomes systemic. You say nigga and everybody looks up. You understand? Yo, what's up, my nigga? And people turn around. Why?
Why are you so stuck on the word nigga? Like when we was coming into the studio, I said, damn, this goddamn nigga always must have referring to my cat. And it hit you as soon as you heard me say it. Why? What happened? Talk to us.
Brother, listen, right? It's hard to believe, right? And it doesn't come easy for people to stop and look themselves in the face in the mirror and admit nigga doesn't mean anything to black people. It doesn't mean anything to all that term of endearment. That's bullshit. That's white people trying to understand why do they say nigga all the time? There must be a term of endearment. You understand? And then you have other silly bastards that pick that shit up and try to run with a white person's analysis of their stupidity, right? The reason they say it is because white people say it. Now, the reason white people don't say it no more is because black people say it for them. So they don't have to say it, right? Now, the reason it's stupid is because it's black and Dutch, right? The reason they are not niggas is because the last niggas was sold here to the English in 1619. And then the Dutch lost their shit, so no more niggas, no more. From then on, everybody else, it's all fake niggas. All market copies, all like off the assembly line mentally, right? Now, today, because people say niggas so effortlessly, right? You have people who have commoditized nigga. They make money for saying it. They get paid for saying it. Actors, rappers, comedians, writers, they put that shit in scripts and they get paid for that, right? Yo dumb ass run around here saying that shit for free is the epitome of the slave market process. You got free niggas growing wild in the fields, and you have people cultivating that crop for profit. That's why I have a problem with it. Now, to show you, to demonstrate to you, to your audience, that nigga doesn't mean anything to us, we will literally call anything nigga. When we walked into this studio, you said that nigga always do this, and you were talking about your cat.
Right.
A fucking cat, right? I've heard people talk about their pit bulls. Yeah, this my nigga. You understand? I've heard girls say it to guys, you my nigga. Guys say it to girls, you my nigga, right? When you get mad, fuck you, nigga, right? When you talking to somebody you don't know, who that nigga? When you talking to the Arab in the store, man, fuck you, nigga. To the police, man, fuck them niggas. And you talking about white people. You understand? So it doesn't mean anything to you, right? But because it was used so much in this market, you have white boys that will stomp the shit out of another white boy. Yeah, nigga, yeah, nigga. Chinese kids doing it to another Chinese kid. Same shit. Yeah, nigga, yeah, nigga. It don't mean nothing to you. You know, all the Dominicans, they nigga all day. The Puerto Ricans, my nigga all day, right? Now, when they get mad at you, you become the nigga, not them. Now they turn that shit on you. That's the market use of nigga. You understand? You do it too. When you get mad at your man that used to be, what's up, my nigga? You will turn that nigga into a different nigga. You will turn it into a bitch ass nigga now.
Facts.
Fake ass nigga. I'ma kill that nigga. You understand?
Right.
So, psychologically, you have to understand that it has been traumatically introduced to you, and it still plays a psychological effect because of its use. Now, when you bring the commercialization of it into the fact, you got rap music where they make niggas sound like it's gangster, like it's Gucci, like I'm hanging with my niggas and we doing the shit. You know what I'm saying? Now people hear that and they want to hang with they niggas too. You got people all over Africa now want to be niggas, right? And I'm like, I had a conversation with some kids from Ghana, right? Ashanti kids. And they asked what's selling black people. So I said, y'all should be the last fuckers over here saying nigga, because y'all was like responsible for making them, right? And they like, can't let this old brony tell us what to do, what to say. Call me old brony. Now old brony mean white boy to them. You know, they'll tell you, no, it don't mean white boy. It mean like foreigner. It mean like Jabari try to say, oh, it means little white doll. Listen, no, it means white boy. You understand? Now, if you want to kind of hear the pidgin English of it, old brony, right? And then you think dark-skinned black person mixed with a white person, what you gonna get? You're gonna get a old brownie. You know, you ain't gonna get a black person, which in Ghana would be a bibini, right? Or brony meaning the other guy, and obibini meaning, like us. Now they don't see us as a bibini unless you corner them on it. They say, oh, no, you not Obroni, you Obibini. You understand? I've been there. I've had conversations with people from Ghana. I've had a look. Chick look just like Queen Ty. You know Akhenaten's mother? Look just like the fucking I mean, this woman, her features look exactly like that statue, right? If that statue came to life, it would be this woman, right? And she said, you American? I said, well, how the hell am I American? She said, you were born here, right? I said, your kids were born here? She said, yeah. I said, they American? She said, no. I said, why not? She said, because I'm from Ghana. I said, so how the hell am I American? If your kids were born here and they not American, I was born here, how am I American? I'm not American because I was born here. She said, oh, you black? I said, yeah. She said, what about the light-skinned ones?
Oh, man.
She didn't skip a beat. Straight face, no insult intended.
Right.
Right? If I'm black, what about the light-skinned ones? So they don't see light-skinned black people as black. I told you, one of them was light, right? And I told him, I said, you the lightest guy from Ghana I ever seen. He said, oh, I'm half caste. I thought he meant one of his parents was white. I said, you half caste? He said, yeah, my mother's from Ghana, but my father's from Ethiopia. Not a white man, an Ethiopian. But this guy from Ghana don't consider them black like them. You understand? He considered himself half caste because he half Ghanaian and half Ethiopian. What I'm saying to you is that the way we see the world, sa.neter, over here, out of this American bubble, we got white man binoculars on. So a lot of the shit we see, we looking through a fucked up lens, okay? And it's colored by ignorance because people don't see themselves the way we've been taught to see them. You understand? We see Africans, they come over here and tell us, yeah. Remember the video I posted with the sister? And I asked her, when you were growing up, were you African? And she said, no, I was Mandingo Bambara. And I said, when you became African? She said, when I came here. And people got mad at me and said, she's stupid. No, she's not stupid. She's telling the truth.
Right.
Because I'm arguing with a room full of brothers from the continent of Africa and the Bronx, right? And they all trying to tell me that they African because they misunderstood.
Yeah. Yo, family. Part 2 is 2.